Hello, welcome to our podcast. It is called Enchanted Educators, Teaching Tales. I am one of your educators, Natalie Lucero.
And I'm Adriana.
If you haven't seen our previous podcasts, we are related. I am the aunt.
And I'm the niece.
Yes, and we both have been in the early childhood field for quite some time. We love talking about it. This is our passion, and now we get to share it with you, our audience. Today, we're going to be diving into early childhood education curriculums. A lot of educators and parents get very overwhelmed, not really knowing what all of that is. You think of curriculum, it's like, okay, you're going to teach my children. But there's so many different philosophies and educational elements that go with it. So we're going to share those with you today.
Especially for teachers and new teachers, or like teachers that already been in the field. They might not, they want to be like, oh, I want to be a preschool teacher or infant teacher. But there's so much different curriculums, and it's like you have to find something that like suits you.
Yes.
What would you like to teach? And if you never have known any of these curriculums, then you would never know. Like, I don't even want to speak on the ones that we're going to speak on yet. But if I was in one place and they were teaching a curriculum, but I found out about another, I'm like, why wasn't I going over there?
Yeah.
So that's what we want to do. We want to give you guys the information so you guys can choose what fits you and your family.
And this is really the stuff that you don't learn in college. They don't break it down the way that we're going to do today. People typically just apply for a job and they're thrown into it, and they kind of have to adopt whatever culture that is. So before we get started, we're going to break down some of the terminology for you, because there are some repeats, and if you're not familiar with it, it's just going to go right over your head. So we don't want that to happen. If there's anything that you want us to dive deeper into, let us know, because we're just scratching the surface of these. And, we'll share a few things that we know, but we can always do more research or maybe bring people in that we know that are in the field within that curriculum.
Yes, and if you guys have been in like certain curriculums that we are not familiar with too much, please let us know and tell us more about it as well. We want to learn more too.
Yes, and I do want to point out that some of these are new to even us, and we've been in the field for years. It's just always important to keep up with those trends and know what's out there, because preschool, the world of preschool is always changing.
Yes.
So the first term is the whole child. What do you think of with the whole child? What comes to mind?
When I think of a whole child as a teacher, I think about the whole well-being, the physical development of a child, the social emotional development, so the whole child.
Absolutely. It's not just focusing on the academics, but considering their social emotional state, the aesthetics of the environment, making them feel welcome, and really providing a space for independence, not having to go with the flow with everybody. So that's focusing on the whole child, not just focusing on what they're learning in the moment, but understanding that everything around them is affecting them and being mindful of that. The next one is individualization.
Individualization, I see it as what do we do to like individualize their learning, because every child learns differently, so they might need more of verbal talking, and some might be needing more of like guiding and pictures and things like that. You see what each child needs to help support their learning.
Yes, this one actually comes to inclusive teaching, and really understanding that each child has their own developmental level, and we as teachers and educators need to respect where they're at, meet them at that level, and then bring them up as they go. So knowing that even though you may have 12 children and they could all be 3-year-olds, there's still about 5 different levels of development in your class, and you need to be able to adapt your approach to each one.
Yes.
And that's also known as DAP, developmentally appropriate practice.
Yes, and that's something you definitely develop over the years of how, because every child is different, and that's where individualization comes, And
it stems from the zone, as we call it. a philosophy where you're meeting that specific targeted area. Do you remember the name of the specific one? The zone of proximity.
Oh,
There it
yes.
is.
Yes.
The zone of proximity. Who's a philosopher? Oh gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Jeopardy! It's on the tip of my tongue. I want to say Skinner, but I don't think it is Skinner.
Oh no.
That's gonna bother me. Where did it come from? It's not Maslow. Right?
It's not Vygotsky.
Ugh. See, we don't know everything.
No. And then if you're not looking over this all the time, it's like you're gonna forget. But then we're gonna probably both be like, you're right.
Ding, ding, ding! You got it. Vygotsky.
Look at me. What do I get now?
You get bragging rights.
I knew, I don't know why I had that in my head, like like Vygotsky. I don't know why. Because I was like, I know it's not Piaget. I know it's not Erickson. Like, I don't know why. Yeah.
No, I know you were working with special needs more. It's more
That's
in your
probably why.
scope.
Okay.
Definitely. So the next one is conscious discipline. And, you know, this is more of a modern approach, and it's a specific curriculum that was tailored towards parents. So parents out there, if you have children that are challenging, I highly recommend looking into Becky Bailey's conscious discipline concepts because they are amazing. Have you heard of that one?
I don't think so. Like maybe hear like snippets, but not like everything else we were kind of talking about. But no, I want to say no.
Yeah, like I said, it's modern, and she has a lot of videos out there, and there's like role plays, and then there's TED Talk type of things, but it is really amazing, and I've seen it work. And I've even had one full class on this, which is pretty cool, at the University of Laverne, where they focused on it and gave us a textbook that was written by Becky Bailey. And I was like, wow, this woman is amazing. But it's a social emotional learning ESL program that emphasizes self-regulation, safety, connections, and problem solving, focusing on empowering adults to model these skills before teaching them to children. So that's really like understanding that when children have behavioral issues, the child's gonna do what they're gonna do. They're not gonna adapt to the adults.
So we adapt to them.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we have to have those tools in our tool belt to be able to adapt our approach in the moment. Because especially when we get a new class, we have no idea who's going to come through those doors, and we got to be prepared for each child.
Yes.
And it kind of does tie into that individualization.
Yeah.
Understanding how to approach each child.
That's very true.
And it starts right from the beginning. Meeting the parents, meeting the children. Sometimes we can tell just by meeting the parents, like, oh, okay, this child, they're used to being catered to. So we're going to have to work with them on those independent skills.
Yeah.
The next one is play-based. What do you think of the play-based?
Play-based is literally almost like, I feel like it's what it says, like you learn through play. Like a lot of people think that you have to do something specific, or little kids put out blocks and they're learning through their play by building, stacking, counting those blocks, and that's how they're learning.
Yes, understanding that play is how children learn. That is the key within that term. And you got to be careful because this is one that gets thrown around a lot. You see it on websites of schools, and you're going to see it as the mission statement, but is it really being practiced? Because sometimes they say it, but then it's really super structured and it's not play-based. And it is more of a modern approach too, because before we were focusing more on academics and saying they need to know their ABCs, they need to know their numbers, but they could do that by singing, they could do that by reading. It's gonna be integrated. We don't have to specifically focus on that. It could be an objective within the lesson that is more play-based.
Yeah, and I also, being a sub at many centers, I see how it could get lost because the school has so many like ways that they do things, and they're like, I need this, so then it starts getting lost. So I see that as well.
Yes, and a lot of times teachers get stuck in their in their methods. And when they have that shift, because there were some schools where they started out a different way and then they found out about a new approach and then they had to change the way that they do it. You know, that's how we stay current in the field. But it's easier said than done. A lot of times they revert back to the old ways and then it becomes not a play-based approach. And I'm going to say the same happens with this next one, which is even more modern, emergent curriculum. And that's a tough one because you really have to know what your children are interested in. If they're interested in construction, maybe there was a fire going on and all of a sudden they want to learn about firefighters. You have to be able to adapt all of those objective components into whatever they're into and create this project. Emergent curriculum is where the children drive the interest and the teacher are going to focus that for maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 months or 3 months. However long the children are interested in it and the deeper that they want to go and the questions that they ask, those are provocations that the teacher will wield and integrate into that lesson plan, and it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, and I can see that as tricky too because like you can do like immersion where the children are learning or want to learn about some specific area, but then you're doing the individualization, and then what about those children wanting something else? That's where it's like, okay, what is everyone wanting to learn? And I feel like that's where it kind of sometimes gets lost a little bit.
Yes, and we'll talk more about that balance once we dive into these curriculums. But let's go a little deeper and find out about these different ones. We're going to start with one that is very wide known, but I gotta say a lot of times it's not exactly what it says. Montessori. There are some specific teachers that have a certification in it, but you don't have to be certified to work in Montessori. I don't have a certification in it, but I have worked in 2 Montessoris. I think you have too, right?
I have not worked specifically, but I subbed.
Okay.
So I was able to get a little insight of how Montessoris are.
And actually this one's kind of near and dear to my heart because I grew up Montessori with my cousin Valerie, as we mentioned in the first podcast. It's interesting reflecting back because it says that it tends to build people to be very independent thinkers. And I think actually both of us are. Valerie and I, we both are pretty independent. But it started with Maria Montessori back in 1907. And she was a naturalist. So she's one that believed, she's one of the first philosophers that believed that children learn through nature and they're very connected with it and they're naturally interested to it. So she really took that to another level and put a lot of wood type of materials, yes. And she felt that that would be something that they would want to work on. And it was self-led. The structure was different where children were individualized, there's that word, and they needed their own space. Like when you see a Montessori class, they will roll out a mat to do their activities. They will go to the shelf, take their activity to their mat, and they're gonna work on it independently. And that's one of the main things that sets it aside from other curriculums where it specifically emphasizes on that alone time. Not that they don't socialize, but they really value that alone time. Have you seen that in the class that you worked at?
I don't remember. I feel like I was more in like the infant room, I believe. But yeah, I don't know if I remember if they, but I did remember like reading up on that they're very big on individualized, like learning. It's not like they have certain areas where they're in. It's like they are playing what they want to play with, and it's not much of a small group. I think I've heard too. It's not much of a small group or group work. It's like the kids are actually leading what they want to do.
Yes. And it's also, there's been a lot of research studies showing that this particular curriculum is very good for children with ADHD and with autism because they have more freedom within that structure. And there's more of that individualized self-play that allows them to be them and not overstimulated and being forced to be into
like a larger group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So those smaller group structures are really good for children who may have a social disability. And it really emphasizes on that individual curiosity and life skills. That's another thing that sets Montessori apart, where they'll have specific activities that they could do, like pouring water, but they would do it in a orderly fashion. I remember we had to take 2 fingers and then we had to hold it like this, and then you have to pour it into a cup like that, and then take a napkin and wipe it down. There were specific steps to do.
Oh, okay.
And if they didn't do it exactly like that, then the teacher would say, oh, what did you notice? If you didn't put your finger here, what happened? It would be hard to hold, and then it would get shaky, and then the water would start to spill. So it would be a problem-solving learning activity within that. And pouring water from a kettle into a cup, that's life skills, you know, when you have tea. So that's something that other curriculums don't really think of, but it's embedded within the Montessori one.
Okay. Yeah, I did also remember when I was there, like, I always wanted to help, like, a lot, like, the infants, like, oh, let's not climb on the chair or the table, or, you know, things like that. But they were like, oh, no, you let them. Because they learn on their own. And not, for me, I was like, that's a shock. Like, they're going to get hurt, but I think they're very, like, their vision and their idea is, like, children are capable and they're going to learn through play.
Some really promote that risk-taking factor. And we set the environment to where we know that it's going to be safe, whereas other schools with different philosophies won't set it up that way.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you for pointing that out. So they focus on practical life and sensorial, mathematics, language, and cultural studies. That's another one that not all curriculums really promote for infants through preschool. It's kind of one that's a little left out.
Okay.
And then one interesting movement, and this is kind of interesting for us because we're Native American. I don't know if we mentioned that before.
Probably not.
But Montessori American Indian Alignment has started, and that was a project that began in 2006, where they realized that a lot of the whole child approach of Montessori matches the nature and the spiritual aspect of Native Americans. And that's another one where they see the child as a spirit, a pure spirit, and they're exploring within their environment. So that really called to the Native American community and said, okay, we're going to align our preschool structures with Montessori because that philosophy and curriculum seems to promote what we want within our own culture. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then, as I mentioned, there are special needs benefits with this one. So I think that's really why we hear about it being so popular and how it came to have such a household name of Montessori, and specifically in the 80s, it boomed. And it's still going strong.
Yeah. I did want to touch on some of the age groups that they have. So if you guys hear these different curriculums, you can kind of visualize these age groups, and then you can choose what would you like and what makes sense for you guys. For infant and toddler, there's this birth to 3, and then for early childhood is 2.5 to 6, and elementary is 6 to 12. And then they have a secondary, which is 12 to 18 years old, which is crazy. But let me know if that has changed in any way, because I know some people, like some schools, they tweak things and stuff like that. But that's what Montessori seems to have their age groups.
Yes, and I do want to point out that here in the U.S., we are lucky to have so many different curriculum structures to choose from. That really gives us a freedom of being able to know how we want our child to grow up and what their experiences are going to be. This next one that we're going to talk about is called the Waldorf. And I'm gonna be completely honest, it's one that I had heard in the background, never really had a chance to experience or knew too much about it. So this is a new one for me.
And me, I don't know anything. She told me about it and she's like, I want to talk about this one. And I said, okay, but I have no idea. So,
so we're learning with you on this one. It is similar to Montessori, as they both promote the individuality and the whole child, including spirit. Montessori is more structured and limited with imagination. So that was one of the big factors, is Waldorf encourages imagination. If you want to talk about unicorns all day, go for it. You want to talk about angels? All right, let's promote it. Whatever the children's fantasies are, let them explore it, because that's part of their innocence. And it's funny because there are curriculum structures where they're like, oh no, it has to be something concrete within this natural world. We're not talking about angels. We're not talking about unicorns. We're talking about horses, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
It is, and they are very into creative expression. You want to think of maybe like a hippie type of curriculum? Peace, love. If a child is
spinning, they said, I want to spin, and they're spinning, and you're like, we're not spinning right now. That maybe they are.
With this other approach, they'd be like, oh, you want to spin? Hey, how about the rest of the class? Okay, I'm going to take 6 of the children out, and we're going to go spin out in the yard.
Oh, very nice.
Because the children were interested in it, and we don't want to stop them from that. And, you know, if one of them's interested, maybe more are interested. Yeah. So it's really cool that they would go on the child's interest in that way and help them be who they are in the moment.
I just keep seeing, like, sometimes, like, in the classroom, like, some of the kids are just, like, rolling on the ground or, like, just, like, hopping around. And I just could see, like, how here would probably be like, okay, let's go do that. And me over here, like, we're not rolling on the ground right now. We're not spinning. We're not being a butterfly right now.
Yeah. Or maybe it would be, maybe if it's an infant, or, well, it wouldn't be an infant. Maybe if it was more of a toddler, we'll bring out the tunnel and say, hey, you guys want to spin around and go inside the tunnel that way? It looks like you have some energy. So really focusing on the children and what they want to do in that moment. And the teacher is more of a facilitator, paying attention to what they want and then seeing how within this environment they can support the children there. There's a freedom in that other curriculums don't necessarily support.
And with that age group, is early childhood is birth to 7, which is a big group. Middle childhood is 7 to 14, and the adolescence is 14 to 21.
Okay. And in the early classrooms, they focus on art, music, dramatic play, and were considered to be just as important as early math and literacy skills. So those are all equal skills for children to develop, and they're nurtured. And one thing that's kind of interesting is this was a German curriculum that started in the 1919 that emphasized the development of the whole child with project-based structure. So this is kind of like the setup for emergent curriculum. And as I was learning about this, I can see alignments between the Waldorf curriculum and the Reggio. And I am familiar with the Reggio. So now I remember, or now I know why the two were so linked together. Because when I would hear Reggio, I'd hear Waldorf, but I didn't really know what it was. And I can see how Reggio kind of evolved from this. Very cool to see. They focus on the physical, emotional, intellectual, artistic, moral, and spiritual development within their philosophy. Spiritual is interesting because not very many do. Even though I said Montessori does, and this one does, but you're going to find that the rest that we talk about are not going to focus on that. And that's not to say that it's religious. It's more saying that children do have a spiritual self to them.
Oh, okay.
So the next one is high scope. Have you experienced high scope?
Yeah, so the school that I'm at, that's like one of the curriculums that we focus on is high scope.
Okay, so it's pretty current for you.
Yes.
Well, I have two. This is one that I've gotten a certification in, some training, and it is focusing on the natural elements, similar to Montessori and to Willendorf. They learn through play. So we're having this learning through play come across the majority of these more modern approaches to curriculum and teaching children. The curriculum emphasizes on teacher-child interactions. Now that's a new one. The other ones were more see what the children are doing and we're going to follow their lead. But this one is saying the way that the teachers interact with the children are going to help the children understand those social skills, and it's going to guide them. And it's really important to have that teacher interaction.
Yeah, it's a lot of talking with the child and like problem solving with the child, but not giving them the answer, but it's more like, well, what do you think? What should we do about this? And things like that. I do see that. Yeah. So that's what we do.
Yeah, the role of the teacher is important. We're not so much of just an observer, but actively engaged. In high school, the teacher is viewed as a researcher, scaffolding. So that is also bringing in that individualization, understanding where they're at and just taking them to the next level from where they are. Not necessarily as a whole group, but they do value those social interactions a lot more than the other curriculums that we've talked about. This one started in 1962 from the state of Michigan. So this is, woohoo, a homegrown USA curriculum. Why I get excited about that, I'm not sure. I don't think I mentioned it, but Montessori concept started in Italy.
Wow.
And then, as I said, the last one, Waldorf, was German. So it is kind of nice to have one that's from here in the United States.
Yeah.
See, the key development indicators, as they call it within their philosophy, is social, emotional, and learning approaches. And then we have physical and health. Now that's one that we didn't hear in the others. Language and literacy, mathematics, creative arts. That one kind of aligns with the Waldorf. Science and technology, and social studies. So you could tell that this is more of a modern, newer curriculum because they've got the science and the technology, and it was in the 1960s. So now we're focusing more on technology as a component of learning.
Yeah. For the age groups for high school is infant, toddler, birth to 3, and preschool is 3 to 5. And that's what I actually have right now. I have 3 to 5 year olds. But yeah, and I do see a lot of these things. A lot is social emotional is like a big thing that we like work on. Physical development is a lot of like with just their motor skills, jumping, running, climbing, health. They took that out of the DRDP, but I don't know if they took it out everywhere, but in our school they took it out. But I really like that one because it's a lot of like hand washing, and if a child's like in diapers, like the procedure with that and how they go about that. We also had brushing teeth at one point. That's not in there anymore since COVID.
Right.
But I know a lot of people like would ask me like, well, what's health? What is that? Like I have parents talk about that because sometimes I just kind of add it when I know an individual child needs support with that. I do like to add that in some of the communication forms and things like that.
Yes, and they really focus on child-initiated learning experiences and setting up the environment for them to learn. And that's where that philosophy kind of started, and you're going to see that the other ones that we talk about are moving further into that.
Yeah, and we do have this one does have small group activities where we lead an activity, where the other ones, like you said, they guide their own learning, but this one is specifically, we do have small group activities and large group activities. So we do like a little music and movement with everyone, and then we break out into groups, and we're like with our own children, and we like individualize their learning in their small group.
Yes. Next one that we're going to talk about is creative curriculum. Like Montessori, creative curriculum focuses on individual skills as the intentional structure scaffold learning like high scope. So now you're going to see a little bit of an integration, and it is a bit of more of a modern curriculum as it was founded in the 1978, just a little bit after high scope. So you can see that high scope kind of sets the stage for it, and then creative curriculum takes it to sort of the next level of focusing on teachers being a critical facilitator. So we were saying it really is heavily influenced on those teacher interactions. Now creative curriculum is saying that it's a critical component to have those intentional teaching moments with the children. And they emphasize that with their curriculum toolkit of Mighty Minutes, which are these little cards that basically have games, songs, transitional type of activities, so that the teacher is engaging the children even in those downtimes, understanding that there's always these educational moments throughout the day built in to the routine aside from the specific schedule. So that's something that's kind of cool, because in the past curriculums they didn't really emphasize on that. It's something we just kind of had to figure out as teachers, like, oh, what are we going to do with the children during this transition?
And I feel like this one's like a really good one for also like new teachers, because it's kind of like if you do have this curriculum and this box, like it has a lot, it's like there for you already, like it already has like the activities you can do, and it's also broken down to like different specific subjects. Like if you want to learn about bugs, if you want to learn about careers and things like that. That's what I've noticed when I did sub at a Head Start, and they did creative curriculum.
Yes, I have to say that it is a basic curriculum for beginning, like you said. It's also really good for FCCs where they don't have as much training in early childhood education, but the curriculum is already set up right there with all the standards built in. So all you have to do is kind of go into your toolkit. It's a box, a creative curriculum box, a curriculum box with books, and then it's got specific Hello highlights, which is so funny to me because I remember growing up in the 80s. You probably don't remember this.
I was not growing up in the 80s.
But they would have these magazines called Hello Highlights. And they actually were more from the 70s, but they were still trending in the 80s. And my mom subscribed me to it, and I would be reading these. And it's funny to see it here in the creative curriculum. They took those stories and had some sort of way of integrating that within their curriculum. And now that's a big thing, is having these Hello Highlights, which used to be a magazine when I was little. So yes, this is all inclusive, and it makes it super easy for the teachers to be like, okay, I'm gonna plan something for science, I'm gonna plan something for literacy, I'm gonna plan something for physical development. Put it in that blue folder, and then pick a few Mighty Minutes that go with that, and then you can have it right there. And it's great for subs. If you are not going to be in that day, it's okay because it's already there in the folder. And if you have to be sick that day and call in, the teacher that comes in there is going to know exactly what you had planned for that day. So it makes lesson planning so much more smooth.
It really was, honestly. Like, I was always nervous. I'm like, I don't know, what are we doing? But like going into like the Head Starts, I was like, okay. Like, they really had the book. And a lot of times the teachers were pretty prepared, where they would like already have it, where they do like large group, where they had their little area, so the book would already be there. So I'd be like, okay, and then I'll read that to them. And then the Mighty Minutes, if I needed like more, like something else to do with them, or you know, those were always nice too.
Mighty Minutes is like a huge factor with creative curriculum, where that was kind of like a game changer that sets them apart from the rest of them. And they're really cool. I like a lot of them. The structure of the curriculum is pretty easy to follow. It's not tricky like some of the other ones that we were saying, where you have to really observe the children and understand what they're doing, and then it's tailored to them and you're reflecting every week. This is more in the moment. I can pick cards out. I know I'm going to focus on these. It's going to be educational. It's going to be research based, and they're going to get intentional teaching out of it. Yeah. So that's really what the philosophy is behind that. There are some drawbacks with that, of it being a boxed curriculum, because if you're a beginning teacher and you don't really know any of these other curriculum styles, then it becomes very basic and straight and narrow. And if you're only following what's in your box, and you have children that have been with you, say in an FCC for 2-3 years, then it starts to get a little old because they've already done it. The children are kind of bored with it. They do have a modification scale, and it's color coded between red to yellow to orange. And it does kind of show different approaches you can use according to age, which is really cool. And it's nice for the teachers because, they do assessments like the DRDPs. So it helps them scaffold those learning outcomes. But still, there's not a lot of variation. And that could be a bit of a drawback with this one. And people get they have a hard time with it because it feels a little too structured. Yeah. If you're a seasoned teacher and you're going into this, then you're going to feel like you're confined and you have to stick to those specific elements versus having the creativity to create your own lesson plan. But then others would like it because it takes less time to just pull out the cards and say, okay, this is it, instead of having to come up with those activities on your own. Because if you don't know what those activities are like and how children are going to react to it, then that could be more difficult. So there's some pros and cons that go with it.
Yeah. And that age group for infants, it's birth to 11 months. Toddlers is 13 to 36 months. And then preschool is 3 to 5.
Yes. And I kind of mentioned learning objectives, but what they focus on is social studies, cognitive, and that's encompassing science, math, and technology. And there's arts, culture, and ethics. Now that's a new one that hasn't come in yet. Social emotional development, language and English acquisition, which is one that's pretty interesting because they understand that there is bilingual learners within the U.S. specifically. Yes, you want them to learn their home language, but you still want them to assimilate and learn English. So they expect that balance.
Yeah.
And then the physical development. Now this is one that is really, really praised upon for Head Start alignment and early Head Start alignment, because it is so heavily researched and it is developed specifically for Head Start classes. All right, the next one is Reggio. This is an out-of-the-box curriculum, I will say. It's like, woo, we're going yin and yang from creative curriculum to Reggio.
Yeah. I'm familiar with this one because where I'm at right now, it is like kind of together, Reggio and high scope. That's our philosophy, our curriculum that we follow.
Yes, and it's really interesting because as we go through this, we can kind of see the evolution of the different curriculums come about and how they piggyback on each other. This one is similar to the high scope, like you said, collaboration, group work. It takes this one step further with the project-based learning. And we did hear that in another one, but this one goes into emergent curriculum. And this is the birth of emergent curriculum with the Reggio. This curriculum is often referred to as Reggio Emilia, and this is one that came from Italy. And it started around the World War II in the 50s. And I thought this was pretty cool because that was the time of reform, and a bunch of parents got together with educators and said, hey, we need a structured curriculum that is going to focus on the future of our country. So how can we bring in those practical elements? Like Maria Montessori curriculum was talking about practical life skills. And we're like, we want these children to know what the inside of a bakery is like because they might want to be a baker. Or we want them to understand about the grapes and the vineyards because they might want to own a winery sometime. So they're thinking that these young explorers and individuals are eventually going to be entrepreneurs, which is true. And it's really cool to think of that because how many times do we look at children and we're like, oh, they're just a young human being. We're not thinking they're going to grow up and blossom into this successful entrepreneur adult, right? Yeah. So let's prepare them from when they're young. And I just feel like it's such a radical concept, and it's so cool to see these schools because they are very free-based. Another one where I would associate with like kind of a hippie approach to it, children are driving the curriculum. They are literally in the front seat behind the wheel, and the teacher is just kind of saying, okay, you're going to take a left here, you're going to take a right here. We are really allowing them to mold what they want to learn, and it's so amazing to see how that freedom takes a child. They feel very, very independent, and I experienced that right when I first went into my first Reggio classroom, and I was like, whoa, this kid is very confident at telling me exactly what they want to do in the moment. And I'm like, hello, child. It's pretty noticeable right away in those Reggio classes. They focus on investigations of learning. So they're setting up provocations and problem solving. It's finding out what kind of project can you dive into. Like when I was working at a Reggio school, a child came up to me and he goes, Mediti, what's a supernova? And I'm like, ooh, that is a fun question. Where did you hear such a huge word from? And he says, my daddy fell asleep and was watching National Geographic, so I kept watching. Like, okay, so you're hearing about a supernova. And I said, well, what did you see on the screen when you were listening about it? And he goes, I saw stars. And I said, yes, it is a cluster of stars. But you know what? Let's dive a little deeper into it. And so we had a project of focusing on the planets, the stars, the moon, Earth, and really focused on learning about the solar system. And it was so exciting to be able to see how many other children were fascinated with it just from this one child's enthusiasm. And then they all wanted to. I remember this was a 3-year-old class. We had projects like poking holes in a paper plate, and then right before nap time we'd give them flashlights and they'd get to shine it around.
Oh, that's cute.
And then I made some specifically to show the constellations, and then I would say, what does that look like? Can you see a bear in there? And some of them would say, yeah, I see it. And like, I still to this day don't see a bear out of Ursa Minor or Ursa Major. But they were following along with me, and you know, it really enhanced that creativity and allowed them to explore it in other ways that I wouldn't have done in other classrooms. I liked that project-based approach because there were a few times where I'm like, wow, I didn't realize how deep we can go, because our lesson plans are usually Monday through Friday, move on to the next.
Yeah.
So there is some really fun creativity as a teacher to be able to expand those projects and emergent curriculum into weeks and months of deeper exploration and really get into that field. And it's fun for us because as educators of young children, we kind of stuck to the same safe type of topics. But it's nice to get out of the box, and if a child is talking about astronomy, then let's explore that.
Yeah. And these age groups for Reggio is for the infants and toddlers. It's birth to 3, preschool 3 to 6.
Yes. And the philosophy of the Reggio is, first, the teachers are referred to as adult facilitators. The second is peer students. They learn from us, but they also learn from each other. And so it includes that socialization and exploring togetherness. And then the third, and this one is kind of like a radical concept, the third teacher is referred to as the environment. So setting that stage. And when I was the Reggio teacher, I would come in 10 minutes before the children came in, and it was part of this philosophy of being able to set something in different centers so that the children would come in and automatically be curious about it, and that curiosity would have to do with something that they mentioned they were interested in, like the day before or the week before. So it was very intentional, but setting that stage for them to explore.
Yeah, that's what that I noticed that we do at our center. We do in the morning put stuff out, and sometimes we're like, oh, we notice that this child is like really interested in the bugs right now, so then in the morning we'll put out the bugs and we'll put out the magnifying glasses, and then they'll look at the bugs and stuff like that. But we do that in the morning, so when they come in, they're already choosing where at the table they want to be.
And that's the alignment between High Scope and Reggio. They are very similar. Even though it started in the 1950s, it didn't pick up into the US until around the 2000s, really. I would say, yeah, because I was at Laverne University when I found out about the Museum of Reggio.
Oh.
And that was when it was trending. So it is more of a modern style, and there are some really great Reggio schools out here. One of them is Little Owls in Long Beach, and that one was set up by professors at the University of Long Beach. Another one is in Santa Monica called The Growing Place, and that one has trainings. I have gone to a training at the Long Beach one. It is very, very hard to get into the Santa Monica one because it's super in demand. But it is so cool the way that it's structured to where children can go inside, they can go outside, they can go to other classrooms if they want to, and the teachers just kind of follow the children and they get to explore. And the different rooms have like different types of materials in it. Like one could be a mathematical concept room, and then the other one is a science room. So I would love to go to that one. That's on my bucket list. Yeah. We should go together. That'd be so cool if we could take the podcast with us. We'll try it.
Who wants to go? Comment down below if you like.
Yes, yes.
Or message us on Instagram.
So this is a progressive approach that blends child-led interests through learning activities. They emphasize on science and technology, math and engineering, arts, social emotional development, language and literacy, physical nutrition and health. So this one is pretty encompassed with a lot. And again, that's because it was from the parents and they wanted more. And they were saying, our children need to learn about the bakery. Our children need to learn about auto mechanics. This is a curriculum that is known for being a risk taker. So you go into these classes, you're gonna see children molding with actual clay. You're gonna see in the sandbox that they have bricks, which is crazy for some schools. They'd be like, oh no, the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds can't do bricks, but yes they can. And if you're learning about the 3 little pigs, what better way to understand about how the brick house is sturdy than to actually give them bricks into the sandbox. So it's really cool. That is just one example. And again, I worked at a Reggio for 4 years, so I can go on and on with that, but I'm gonna leave it there. The next one is a new one. This one comes from Finland, founded in 2016 as far as when it started to go global, and it's called Hey Schools. This is from the University of Helsinki. Try to say that 3 times fast. So it's interesting because I discovered this one when I was going through research and looking at different curriculums around the world. And then I saw that this one was really starting to take up speed, going into the Middle East and going into Asia. And I'm like, wow, those are some kind of hard countries to go into. What is it about this one that's so fascinating? And when I looked at it, I saw that it is very similar to Reggio, where it has this project-based, and it takes it a step further with the holistic curriculum structure. So it's not just the whole child, holistic in understanding that the children within that environment can flourish. And it's really about nurturing them and giving this low minimalist, low stimulation environment for them to really explore without any distractions. And that's a novel concept.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the traditional preschools, I mean, it's a splash of color here, it's a splash of color there. It's kind of connecting with that Montessori concept and also the Waldorf and Reggio, but it's going much further. So this is a more modern approach to it globally. And I've only known about it for about 2 years, and I did get a certification in it. And it was because I saw that it was such a progressive approach. And if you look at the research with Finland people, they're the happiest in the world and have been for 8 years. So there's something to be said about the way that they're doing social emotional development.
And I did look up on Hay Schools a little bit, and their age groups were interesting in the way that they put them into place. Like we have like infant, toddler, preschool, but how they rate theirs, I guess, but then theirs into groups were interesting. For the younger ones, they call them bright babies, 6 to 1. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing 6 months to 1 year old. Tiny tots, 1 to 2. Eager explorers, 3 to 4. Mm-hmm. And lively learners, 5 to 6. So that was so interesting when I was looking it up. Let me know if that's like wrong, but it seemed like that's how they level out their age groups.
Yes. And I do want to point out that for any of those entrepreneurs out there, that there are no Hay Schools currently in the United States. I've heard that there was one that was going to be built in New York and one that was going to be built in Tennessee, but as far as I know, they have not fully come up yet. There is a new curriculum box that they have. So they do have a structure where you can open up a Hay Schools or you can order their curriculum box. So they have both. There are a few places that have the toolbox in the United States, but I mean like a handful. It was 4 or 5, and that's all within the last year. I regularly look at the website, so I kind of check, because I've always kind of wanted to be the first one to open up one in California or on the West Coast. I don't know, maybe someday we will. Or maybe just a mommy and me and integrate this, because that's more what we're kind of focusing on right now. But yes, this is a curriculum that I have fallen in love with because it is just such a holistic approach, and that's a novel concept and a game changer to me compared to all the other ones that we've talked about today, where it focuses on that individuality and really gets to know what the beliefs are of each child, and knowing that they are in their own space, and no matter what we engage them in, they're going to be learning. So knowing that we can change anything into an academic lesson, but keeping that play-based and understanding that they are individuals and being able to let them enjoy their childhood in their space. And I think a lot of the curriculums kind of got away from that, and now we're coming back to it of being free in that environment and lowering the stress. And if you look at the pictures of these, it just looks like a calm place to be. Like, I want to be in that classroom right now.
Yeah.
It's a lot of green, nature-based, wide open, airy spaces.
Not like a lot of like furniture or toys, like buckets. It's very like clean cut and open space, like you said, which is nice.
And even the materials you engage the children in, it's going to be more natural looking, not
like so many colors. And then that could help for children with children with autism or ADHD, because that a lot of colors, a lot of things around can overstimulate them. So this can also be a good
And the curriculum really focuses on the special characteristics of the children, and then getting to know the child, what are their interests, and targeting that well-being of the whole child. The progressive approach blends a child-led interest with learning activities, including music. That's the first time we saw that one. Science, math, arts, culture, and ethics. We did hear one other one that had that. I think it was the creative curriculum. Language and literacy, and physical well-being. And I thought that was really cool the way that they termed that, because it's not just physical, it's their well-being, encompassing that health and nutrition aspect into it. Mm-hmm. And even, you can say, focusing on that spiritualness in it as well. So I really love this one. Mm-hmm.
So this might be coming to you soon. Who knows? Maybe in our Mommy and Me.
So here's another one, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know it existed until a year ago.
I didn't even know until she told me like a couple weeks ago.
So I regularly go to these conferences, and there was one that we went to, and we kept hearing Frog Street. And I looked at my friend and I go, what is Frog Street? Do you know? She goes like, oh yeah, it's a curriculum. And I said, oh, well, that is a new one on me. Turns out this is another American curriculum that started in Texas by Dr. Pam Schiller, I'm gonna say, in 1989. So this one is pretty recent compared to all the other ones. So in a way, it's not surprising that we haven't heard it in California. It's still very new. It's a baby curriculum. The set includes, it is a box curriculum, like creative curriculum, yes. And you can't see the picture, but you can see, we can see.
I'll put one right here.
It is very similar.
But yeah, if you're listening, then I'll probably post these on Instagram for you guys to read about. But also, like I said, our Patreon.
Yes.
They'll be on there.
We have a few already too. So if you want to know more about the things that we're talking about, we do break it down and have visuals on our Patreon. So the set includes specific themes. One of them is like physical me, thinking me, social me, feeling me. It focuses on each day of the week. So those are driven by a week, which is very different because usually we kind of encompass those in a daily curriculum, whereas they focus on it in one day and then they move on to the next one the next day. So that I felt was very unique. Mm-hmm. The developmental areas are social, emotional, language and literacy, cognitive, which includes math and science, and physical. So again, pretty basic. Similar to the creative curriculum, as we said, it is a box one. The curriculum is inspired by Becky Bailey's conscious discipline theory. So when I was reading off of those that I had just mentioned, there was a lot of me. So it's very social, emotional based. So basically what Frog Street did is took this parent curriculum and integrated it into a preschool curriculum, which is kind of cool. Social, emotional centered, definitely. It is another beginner curriculum where it's all there for you. You pick out the books, you pick out the cards, you set the materials. One thing that really stands out to me is there's a lot of color. It's a little overstimulating to me.
Yeah, I can see that.
The beginner curriculum, child-driven, and implementation required. It does. Again, I don't know a lot about it, so if you out there know about it, we'd be happy to hear. When I did go to the conference and learn about this, it was how they facilitate coaching towards the Frog Street curriculum, helping them dive deeper into it. And again, it was very social, emotional based, so that kind of sparked my curiosity, and I really do like conscious discipline, so I did want to look it up. But I would love to go to Texas and kind of see how it is implemented over there. I'm sure we have some here in California, I just don't know of them.
Yeah, I don't either. And their age groups are, for infants, is 0 to 18 months. Toddlers is 18 to 36, and preschool is 36 to 48 months. So that's how they separate their age groups.
Interesting. Yeah. If you guys know about that one, let us know, because we would love to learn more. It's very, very new for us. Well, we hope you enjoyed this, and I know there are other curriculums out there, specifically in the Asian countries. They have a lot of curriculums that are just for that entire country, and they have to adopt it, which is really cool. Hay schools kind of started out that way, but then they saw how beneficial it was for Finland, and they decided to open up internationally in 2016. So I'm wondering if maybe some of those Asian countries that have a solidified curriculum for early learning, if maybe someday they would open it up to the public as well. And if you're interested in learning about those, let me know, because I do have it in a research paper hiding somewhere in my computer.
I hope you guys enjoyed. Let us know if you want more information on any of these, and maybe let us know if you guys know any of these.
And you really want it to align with your own teaching philosophy, because as you can see, there are lots of different philosophies, and I didn't even go into too much of where the philosophies came from with, you know, Piaget. Some of them were more Vygotsky, some of them were Brennenberg. So there's a lot of different philosophies that go into it, and we probably will go into those psychology theories later on, and then come back to this and see how it all integrates. But if we were to go into that, I mean, this podcast would go into 2 more hours.
Yeah.
So let us know if you are interested in that, and we can explore it in another episode.
Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. And don't forget, stay enchanted by education.
Goodbye.